Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. We're on episode 91. Wow, can't believe we're on 91. Love this journey and feel so grateful for all the messages we receive and the impact this podcast is having. Yeah, I talk to Stacey about it often. It's a passion project of ours, and I feel very blessed. So as we begin, always love to introduce my co-host, so introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and now published author, Stacey Brown. Stacey, over to you.
Thanks, buddy. Hi, friends. I'm Stacey, and I am intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I host this podcast with Nimesh. I read Akashic records, and I do coaching and mentoring for people from around the world. I just recently published my first book, Journey to Soul Center: Discovering the Gift of Surrender. And I'm in a season of transformation and healing, and I love sharing this space with you, Nims.
Thank you, Stace. I love sharing the space with you too. So, hi, everybody. I'm also an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, spiritual coach and mentor, and also coach, right? And I love the work we do. I really feel that we're all being pushed to shine a light and serve in whatever way we're here to serve. And I just love guiding people to answers they have inside themselves, right? I really feel what our role is to guide people. Nobody needs fixing, and to help and accelerate people on their journey. And I love seeing, those aha moments in whoever we're mentoring or working with in their eyes when they kind of get those aha moments of understanding who they are, the growth, shining the light, connecting with the gifts. Really do feel blessed with the work that we do. And I feel blessed with this podcast. So this week's topic I'm looking forward to talking about, and it's the power of gratitude and forgiveness. Powerful, both powerful and transformative emotions and actions that can have a profound impact on us. And both I personally I've worked on a lot in my life. Gratitude and being intentional with the gratitude is a powerful emotion. And it's easy to be grateful for having a roof over our heads, having a loving family, and all that. But when we're intentional with the gratitude, i.e., things like, I enjoyed spending time with Stacey today as we recorded the podcast. We had a really deep and meaningful conversation and loved what we shared. When we do that and we're intentional, what we do is we solidify a magic moment in ourselves. And we also then ask the universe for more of those magic moments. So I'm always intentional with the gratitude. And I I feel very blessed with the love I have in my life and kind of the things I get to do on a day-to-day basis. So I am grateful for who I am. That doesn't mean I don't want more, right? And that doesn't mean that, I'm not going to continue to be grateful for whatever else comes into my life, right? But it's that. But I'm also very conscious that when I go out of my way for somebody, I always used to think, I give unconditionally. But I have to admit, there's a piece of me that wants the other person to be grateful. I don't want anything in return, as in I don't want whatever I'm doing to be reciprocated. But I guess I want some respect. Maybe that's the way of describing it. And we go much deeper in this. And forgiveness, you know, for me, there's so much power in forgiveness, i.e., sometimes we hold on to what people say to us and what people do to us. And it burns away at us when the other person may not even remember the thing they've done to us. And for me, there's a lot of power in forgiveness. It doesn't mean you forget. It's up to you, right? That's how you hold on to. But forgiving the other person and not giving them power, and also forgiving yourself and realizing that, whatever you did wasn't a mistake. It's just a learning curve, right? What if there's no such thing as right or wrong? That just whatever we do is a learning curve. And forgiving yourself in many ways is, for me, much more important than forgiving the other person. How often I've done this in my life, I've forgiven the other person, but I've held on to kind of judgment on myself. And how does that serve? I mean, it kind of holds you back. And I'll give an example later in the podcast, and I've shared before. But before we go there, Stace, I'd love to hear from you. When I say to you the power of gratitude and forgiveness, what does it mean to you?
So I'm grateful that we have this podcast. And I'm also grateful that we just updated our website, and we want you to check the websites out and look at what we do to help people on this journey. So I just want to interject that. And then I want to say,
Don't forget about our promotion. So right now we've just updated our website. We have a 20% promotion off all the services that we do. I love what we do. And yeah, you just gave me an opportunity to mention that. Thank you for that, Stacey. I'm grateful for that.
and friends, one of the things that I love about what we do here is we don't script anything. We don't edit, we don't change things around. We bring to the table who we are and just open up a conversation. And we do that because we want to be as open and authentic as possible. And for me, learning the power of intentional gratitude was a game changer. And it was something that I didn't really understand the power of. And as I have gone deeper in my understanding of journaling and the impact of the written word, I have a space allotted every day for that intentional gratitude. And I, just to clarify for anyone who's listening who maybe doesn't know the difference, for me, it's very easy to listen to people say, like, I'm thankful for my husband or wife, or I'm thankful for my family, or I'm thankful for my kids. But I don't know that there's a deep heart connection when we do that. Whereas I could say, I'm grateful that I get to record this episode of the podcast with Nimesh and be totally present in delivering whatever is meant for this episode, right? Like, see how intentional and in the moment I am. It's like I'm recognizing the power of the present. And I have found that it's been a really pivotal part of my healing, because there are days, even now, where it's very easy to be in the space of like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to do this? Or maybe feeling sorry for yourself or upset about your circumstances or whatever it may be. And carving out a space to say, this is what I am grateful for. Like, I'm acknowledging that the universe is meeting my needs, really calms for me a space in my heart that nothing else calms. It brings me to a space of being in the present moment and recognizing, like, in this moment, I'm okay. And it's something that I recognize the impact when I don't do it.
And that's an important thing, right? Is to have that gauge of when you do things for yourself and when you don't, and how does that make you feel? And it's interesting, and I think about some of the conversations we've had with our clients recently, and it's that it's really easy to, it's relatively easy to be grateful when things are going well, to kind of, kind of really kind of focus on, the love around us and the beauty and the financial abundance, whatever you want to call it, when things are going well. But how difficult is it when seemingly the world is against you? It's more difficult to be grateful in those moments, right? For me, the irony is actually it's even more important that we're grateful in those moments, because, I always like to think of it as, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, right? And for me, when you're on that hamster wheel of kind of trying to when you're on a down phase and you're trying to get out of it, actually being grateful is for me an important part of it. It reminds me of a conversation I was having on Clubhouse yesterday, where the topic was um, raising your vibration is not always a good thing. That kind of made me think, because I'm always trying to keep my vibration high, right? And I guess that the conversation was, we're a soul that is meant to have a human experience. So if we're always trying to keep our vibration higher, then are we sometimes spiritually bypassing and not experiencing the human experience? And for me, yes, it's important that we experience the human experience, right? It's important that we go through the painful things that we're meant to, because that helps our soul grow. But we don't have to stay there. And for me, being grateful and picking, we all have things that being grateful for. And even if that's just being able to take a walk in nature and appreciate the beauty around us, then do that. And Stacey, I'm going to ask you, because you're one person that I know that's gone through a lot of change and a lot of painful expansion in a short space of time. And I want to ask you, when you were going through those painful times, how hard or easy was it for you to be grateful?
So just because I was going through a hard time didn't mean that I couldn't find things to be grateful for. I just had to dig a little bit deeper. And um, I've formed a real habit with journaling. And when I say that, I want you to know, like, I'm imperfect. It doesn't happen that I do it every day, all the time. Like, but I journal a lot. And because of the discipline of doing it, I would make myself dig deep to find things I was grateful for, even if I wasn't in the best space. I definitely feel like I have had to discipline, like incorporate discipline into it, because there are days where it comes easier than others. But what I have found is there's always something, right? And sometimes it can be like the most minute thing, right? Like I'm grateful that I got a good night's sleep, right? I mean, it might not seem earth shattering, but if you haven't been sleeping well, that could be a big deal, right? Um, so I would say the gratitude component for me was easier than the forgiveness component in the hard times. And
Yeah.
because we're talking about both, I just think it's just easier to be transparent and say, like, for me, because of the discipline of writing down intentionally what I'm grateful for, I was in the habit of it already, which made my mindset probably not derail as much as it would have if I weren't practicing gratitude. It doesn't mean that I wasn't in pain, and it doesn't mean that it wasn't hard, and I'm not sugarcoating it. It just gave me a space though to like reflect on how my needs were being met. Um, but the forgiveness part, um, I'm still in progress with that part.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And
But the thing is, can I just say this really quick? Like I don't feel like I'm walking around pissed off. Okay. Like I don't feel like I have some sadness around the dissolution of some of the relationships in my life, right? And there's this part of me that is still grieving that. And I think forgiveness is a part of it. But if I really am being real with myself, I think that I'm in the process of forgiving myself more than anyone else.
I think that's the interesting part of journey. I guess before I talk about forgiveness, I just want to ask our listeners to take a moment and just pick one thing that you can be grateful for today that's specific and intentional in this moment. Something that you haven't thought of yet. What are you truly, what specific thing has happened to you in the last 24 hours that you want to call out to yourself and be super grateful for? I'm sure we'll ask that again at the end. But it's, yeah, I mean, forgiveness is an interesting part, right? It's that I agree, it kind of comes in layers and it's part of our healing, right? And I'll give you an example of, you know, I've talked about on this podcast before about my spiritual awakening. When I started in the corporate career, I was doing very well. I had nice salary, nice role, nice company car, and everything was going well. And a friend of mine at the time thought I was being too successful, was jealous of my success, and did a bit of black magic so I would be successful. So that led to 2 years of being out of work, going through a lot of pain, potentially losing my home, but didn't. And I was grateful that somehow I connected with a Hindu religious person who I wasn't even went to see. I went to see with a friend who wanted to see her, and she's the one that told me. And then it kind of got awareness myself, and sure, I was guided through it, and I was. But when I got through the other side, I'm sure there's a period of anger, right? There's a journey you go on. But when I got to the point of awareness, I realized that experience was part of my spiritual awakening. So I had a soul contract with this person to do this, to help me to expand, to then open me up to spirituality. So in this moment, I have no anger towards this person. I have no love. I don't want her to be in my life. But I know that she's completing a soul contract, and I've forgiven her and I've forgiven me. And I'm not saying that was an overnight journey, because it is a journey, right? But I recognize that was part of my spiritual awakening. And I guess they'd say time is a great healer, right? And that's what, over time, helps you understand why you experience certain things. Doesn't mean you forget them, but I believe it helps on the forgiveness side. And really asking yourself that question of, how did whatever happened with this person or this thing or whatever, how did it serve me? What did I learn from it? I feel is a big part of letting go, forgiving the other person, and forgiving yourself. And like I said earlier, I really feel that we spend a lot of time letting go and forgiving the other person, but we hold on to things for ourselves because we judge ourselves. We hold ourselves to a different standard than we do other people. And therefore, it's like when we do something perceptively stupid, why did I do that again? The language that we use on ourselves doesn't actually help. And it's like you were saying, I feel that forgiveness is a multifaceted thing. There's layers to it, right? And I think that's part of our spiritual growth, is that I don't really believe in repeat programs. What I believe happens is we experience the same thing to heal at a different level. And I think forgiveness is the same thing, is that we forgive ourselves and the other person to a certain level, but then something else happens that triggers us, and then maybe we need to go deeper on that forgiveness. And it's like doing the inner child work. It's like doing the parental healing. It's that there's less to it. And then you add the paradigm in the mix of ancestral healing, your personal karma that you're dealing from many lifetimes. Forgiveness for me goes deeper, because it is a part of our spiritual awakening, a spiritual healing, and we forgive the past when we're ready to forgive them. It's like in a child work. And I mean, how often in a reading does it come up that the person that we're reading for is dealing with things that they've held on to since a child. They've got some inner child work to do. And a lot of that comes with pain. But a lot of that also comes, and what's needed is forgiveness. Forgiveness of the other person, but actually mostly it comes to forgiveness of self. Letting your inner child know that your inner child is important and a big part of who you are today. So, Stacey, I'd love for you to go deeper on the forgiveness and kind of. I feel like you've been through layers of it in a very short space of time, where I've seen you go through a journey of forgiving, not letting go. Well, maybe, sorry, more letting go and forgiving than forgetting. And, it's allowed you to shine your light differently. And I'd love for you to kind of give us some more insights to help our listeners.
I really struggled, I think, um, in the past more with forgiveness than right now currently. And I get these like visions for myself sometimes, these messages, and I I know that my parents did the best they could with what the knowledge that they had and the journey that they had. And it took me a really long time to get to a space where I could say that and truly feel it. And once I went through that lesson of forgiveness, it kind of shifted the way that I am with other people, because I recognize that we all have a different vantage point, right? And I just believe that people do the best that they can for the most part, in these experiences that I've had. And so for me, what's been the bigger challenge has been, as you said, forgiving myself. And I find that that is still a work in progress. Um, I think that I work through a layer of it, and I think that's the last layer, and then there's more. And it's interesting because the other day I was having a conversation with a client, and she pointed out to me that I will speak negatively of myself, like publicly, even, right? Like that I'll say something disparaging about myself. And she's like, I just wanted to make you aware that you do that. And I'm like, wow, I am really hard on myself. And so I would say right now, that's one of the things that I'm trying to focus on, is rather than like beating myself up or speaking negatively of myself, really coming from a compassionate space with myself. So like kind of ramping up my self-care and doing healthy things to pour into myself versus the negative things. And I think it's something that I've done for a really long time. And I am working on cultivating new habits.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, the honesty. I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate in terms of we are harder to ourselves. We do set ourselves a higher standard than we do others. And Stacey, it's easier for us to spot it in others, right? Because I know I say to you often, focus on how much you've grown in a very short space of time. And but it's so easy for us to focus on the things we've still got to do. Public speaking is a great example, right? Before every time you before any time you're gonna speak or go live, there's an anxiety in you, and you go through this process, but you still show up. And do you choose to focus on the fact that you still get anxious, or do you choose to focus on the fact that you still show up? If I was talking to you, I would say to you, "My God, Stacey, you always still show up. How cool is that?" If you were talking to me, you'd say, "I can't believe I still get anxious even after all these years." And we all
Mm,
do. We all do it. We all, and it's the human nature, but awareness and actually feedback from external actually helps too, right? But coming into awareness and just being aware of ourselves speak helps it, right? So if we just for a while just listen to our internal conversation and then take note every time we put ourselves down instead of focusing on how much we've achieved, because I'm sure every one of our listeners have been through a lot, and we should be proud of who we are. We made it. We're the person we are today. Yes, we're still work in progress, and yes, there's still work to be done. Of course, there's growth to be done. But if we could take time just to be proud of who we are, maybe that helps us to forgive ourselves in a much more accelerated way.
Mhm.
So, Stacey, let me ask you, using the example I gave for you about you being anxious, and you've shared it before, so hopefully you don't mind me sharing. Um, do you focus on the fact that you are anxious sometimes before you go live, or do you focus on the fact that no matter what, you still show up? Because I love the fact that no matter what happens, whatever's happening in your world, you always, always still show up.
I want to create more focus on showing up, on like, okay, I showed up, right? Um, I am working through the discomfort of it.
Because I think it keeps you on your toes. And again, I'm sharing publicly, and but I think it keeps you on your toes. And it's like, for me, a little bit of anxiety before going live and all that keeps me on my toes. I know, s- you know, public speaking, all that for some people can be majorly um, bring up anxiety. So I get that piece. But I always say it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you.
Mhm.
And Stace, I'm proud of the fact that you always react to your anxiety in the way that I'm going to do it anyway. There's
Yeah.
a part
I
of
mean,
that.
I feel like I've been pushed so far out of my comfort zone that it's just like I'm doing a dance with the universe. I have moments where I'm so clear that I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And then there's another layer of forgiving myself or forgiving someone else or whatever it is. And I feel like it's it's something like to work through this process for anybody who's struggling with like finding the moments to be grateful for, or you're struggling to forgive someone. I feel like it's about the day-to-day habits that you have, because it's very easy to get into a space of feeling shit about everything, and there's nothing to be grateful for, and being angry with another person or whatever it is. Like, I just feel like it's a very easy way to be if that's what you've been taught, right? And to get in that habit. But I believe that the reason why I'm able to keep going is because I have daily habits that push me to be in a healthy, positive space. I just can't convey it enough. Like, you said before the podcast, you said the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And I just refuse to believe that the God that I believe in would have me and my family go through what we went through if it wasn't for a bigger vision, a bigger mission. And so when I wake up every day, I wake up with trying to put every bit of intention into intentionally showing up. And I know that it works. Like, for example, we've talked about this. Like, I need daily exercise. I need it the way some people need medication. which I'm an advocate of as well. But I'm saying, like, I know that when I do that, I'm in a better, more positive space, which makes it easier for me to see the moments that I'm grateful for, which also quells my anxiety and gets me into a space where I can show up and be compassionate with myself. And it sounds like, okay, well, how is that? But it lifts my soul. And I believe that when we do things actionably to support ourselves, it makes some of these bigger things not so challenging. Oh, I feel like everything we talk about always goes back to how you're caring for yourself. But the thing is that, friends, it does matter, right? It all adds up in a way. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
agree.
for me, that's where the key has been. Because if I didn't stay in that space and I didn't have those actions, I know what happens. And I go to a space of being sad with myself, which then the sadness turns into discouragement. The discouragement turns into anger or frustration. And then that turns into me not being compassionate with myself.
I mean, I agree. I mean, it comes up in every single podcast, the importance of having a strong self-care routine. Is that, it's human nature to want a quick fix. Just tell me what I need to do and I'll be. But it's like that, having a strong self-care routine is like having a base chakra. If you don't have it, then the rest of the spiritual work becomes so much harder. And I'll always say things like, everything in our external world is a result of something in our internal world. And that is where the healing. So if there's something that triggers us, if there's something that's happening outside that we're not happy about, then actually that's something inside you that needs to be healed, needs to be forgiven, needs to be grateful, whatever we decide. And it's such a, being gratitude and forgiveness is such a foundational thing. Um, but as we've talked about, they're both different, right? Being grateful is about being intentionally grateful and creating that foundation. So you're grateful on a daily basis. So you're asking the universe for more of that that's making you grateful. And forgiveness is a healing process to really forgive yourself and to let go. And it's like, you know, being grateful helps with like your mindset and kind of really kind of appreciating the world around you, your mental health, your relationships start to change because you're asking for more. You see, if you're grateful for the relationships in your life and you start to be grateful, you document it, you journal about it, you're specific about it, you're intentional, then what you're doing is you're asking for the universe for more of those. And also, when you're regularly grateful, you're more resilient because you start to appreciate the world around you. And forgiveness, again, like I said, is much more healing. It's emotional healing because holding on to things, you know, it's like if you hold on to things and you keep holding on to them and you're holding on to them, it's like you're pushing your emotions down. Eventually, they have to come out, and it's like a volcano because it's like if you're not dealing with it a bit at a time, then eventually it erupts into maybe you getting angry, maybe you're getting ill. So it's like emotional healing and dealing with forgiving yourself when things come up is super important because I believe the universe has a role to play, and the universe has a role to play to make sure that we do the healing, we do the spiritual growth we need to. And when we miss the messages of what we need to heal and we push it down, then the messages get stronger and stronger. So really, I feel the healing part of forgiveness is super important. And all of this affects our physical health, our relationships. It's all connected. Such a base for everything else we do. I love this episode because I really do feel it gives an insight into what's happening in our external world. Because so often we want to fix things. Oh my God, this person's causing me anxiety, causing me pain. What if I just fix that relationship? We're not here to fix anybody. The only person we can fix is ourselves. So maybe the good message for all our listeners is to really consider, like I asked you to, our listeners, what are you grateful for? Is what can you could forgive yourself for today? What can you truly look in the mirror and just say, I forgive you? And that's the other one of the things we haven't talked about is mirror work. Mirror work for me is a powerful way to let go of, forgive yourself, and release the things that you're holding on to.
Describe what it is.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of, so mirror work is looking in the mirror, and they say your eyes are your windows to your soul, and looking in the mirror, connecting through your eyes to your soul. And I've tried it. You can't you can't look in the mirror with both eyes in the mirror. It's kind of weird. Pick one eye and really kind of feel your emotion inside you, feel how you feel, and then have a conversation with yourself. I like to, on a daily basis, look in the mirror and just, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I love you. That allows me to love myself from inside. But if I've got, sometimes having a conversation with yourself about whatever's happened and just saying, you know what, I forgive you, whatever's happened, because what if there's no right or wrong? Let's say you've done something that's perceptibly a mistake, but you've learned something from it. So if you can do the mirror work and look into your eyes, read and truly feel the connection that you have with your soul, and then from there have a conversation with yourself. That for me is super, super healing, because you're connecting to your inside and you're starting to love yourself from inside, and you're starting to forgive yourself from inside. Because we're so horrible to ourselves sometimes, and just truly letting go and forgiving yourself for me is super, super powerful. So Stace, these could have been two separate episodes actually, as I think about it. I think we could have done a whole episode on gratitude and a whole episode on forgiveness. But as we start to close out this episode, as you know, I always ask you for journal prompts. But I guess I'm asking you any advice, any advice you have for our listeners, and also what journal prompts should we give them?
So I would just start with the gratitude component, start with the intentional gratitude and write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for each day. I wouldn't create a question per se about it, because I think it's the discipline of doing it. And we don't need to beat around the bush about making it complex. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just get yourself in a space where you're acknowledging every single day 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for in the present moment, and watch what happens in your life. So that's my challenge to you versus a journaling or a journal prompt. And then as far as the forgiveness, I would pick someone, whether it's yourself or someone else that you need to forgive, and try writing them a letter and seeing what comes up. I'm not saying you have to give it to them. I'm just saying go through the practice of connecting with their energy and maybe saying to them in written word what you don't feel comfortable to say to them directly, or you don't feel needs to be said to them directly, and allow yourself the space to process that. I would even challenge you, I would go so far as to say, write it to yourself and see what comes up that you need to forgive yourself for, and what that kind of um, what that process does for you. That's where I would start. And then as far as advice, um, what you do day to day matters. We have 4 bodies: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And all 4 of them need nurturing on a regular basis. So I would encourage you, if you haven't done it, to cultivate a healthy routine that allows you to acknowledge and care for each one of those 4 bodies on a consistent basis. I believe when we do that, it allows us more clarity, more insight, more peace, and that gives us the space to process some of the deeper things that we need to.
Love it, love it. I love the idea of writing a letter to yourself, and I guess my recommendation before we do that is maybe just sit in silence for 5 minutes. Allow yourself to feel what you're meant to feel, and what do you want to forgive, and just be open to whatever, however deep you want to go. Because, and the other thing is, I guess 2 things I'll add is, one, watch your self-talk. That gives you such a clue about what you're holding on to. So be aware of that. And secondly, let go of whatever you've done in the past as much as possible, because so often we hold on to things. If we can just focus on this moment, be grateful in this moment, be forgiving in this moment, then maybe the past becomes easier. From there, you can start to release the things you're holding on to. I love this conversation, Stacey. I could carry on for hours. But as we close out, I just want to remind our listeners, we love the work that we do. We love connecting and working with people and helping them shine their light. We wanted to reach out to many more people, which is why we have a current promotion, which will finish in the next couple of weeks, which is 20% off everything we do. That includes our mentorship program, which is over 12 weeks. That includes any coaching we do. That includes Akashic record reading and Akashic training. So everything we do is currently discounted. So it's really a great time to connect with us. Loved how successful the program has been so far. We really wanted it to give us an opportunity to reach out to many more people, and I love the fact it's doing that. So thank you, I guess is how I'd finish this. Thank you for everyone that's listened to this podcast and got to this part, and give us feedback. We always love receiving feedback. The other thing is follow us on social media. We always share, both me and Stace have a lot of reels we normally share on a daily basis, and Stace does some crazy things online, so she's always sharing. And follow us. I am feeling very grateful, sending everyone lots and lots of love and light, and I'm going to hand over to the amazing Stace to close us up.
So, friends, if you do go to our websites and you go to book a service and you're facing a challenge of timing, like the timing that we're available and we're busy, reach out to us, send us an email. We'll always do what we can to accommodate you. It is a very busy time, but we did this because we want to help as many people as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in again to this podcast. I feel truly blessed. Bye for now.
Thank you, Stace. Sending everyone love and light. Bye for now.